Toledo, we're famous for glass, Art Tatum, Tony Pacos, Jamie Farr, a world-class museum, the Toledo Mud Hens and Walleye, an outstanding zoo and public library system. But who are the people that make our city so great? Welcome to the Soul of the Glass City podcast. I'm your host, Monique. I would like to extend a warm welcome to my guest, John Eikost, who is well known for his dynamic role as the editor of Toledo.com for almost 20 years. Yay!
Thank you.
John, I'm so glad that I can grab you from your uber busy schedule to do this interview with me. How are you feeling today?
I feel great. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here. It's good to be with you. I always enjoy our conversations that aren't recorded as well, but today is good. I was just downtown earlier today getting a sneak peek at the river walk that the Metro Parks is working on. And I feel good. I feel good about the city of Toledo. I feel good about the future of Toledo. Yeah.
I feel so good to get that exclusive right now, so thank you for that.
Oh, okay.
So for those of you that are tuning in for the first time or just learning about John because he's so humble, who is John Eikost?
Wow, that's a big question. I'm a lifelong Toledoan. I would consider myself a curious person who is community-minded, and the things that I partake in, the things that I'm interested in are around the creative culture primarily.
Music.
Like music, yeah, always. Yeah, like I said, a lifelong Toledoan, and I just am impressed with so many people doing really amazing things around town. What else would you need to know about me? That's, like I said, that's a big question.
What's your hobbies?
Well, you touched on one of them, going to see live music. Anybody that knows me well knows that I try to go see live music as often as possible. Just because I enjoy it, and it helps me just kind of unwind, but connect at the same time.
Tell them how many times you've seen Erykah Badu, and I haven't seen her once. Tell them.
Multiple times.
You don't even remember how many times.
It's probably true.
Did you get to see Lauryn Hill yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then tried again and then said, never mind, right?
Yeah, that's right. Lauryn has a specific style about her and approach, and if she shows up, you have a good time.
Yeah. So, all right. When I think of you, John, I think of a man who lives, breathes, eats, sleeps, and dreams Toledo. Okay. Tell us which part of the city you're from, where you grew up, and the schools that you've attended here.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up not far from here in South Toledo, and I went to Beverly, and then Burndale, and then St. John's.
Okay.
And I currently live in Perrysburg.
Okay, so that's funny. But what part of the south? The south.
Over by where the old Bowser used to be.
Okay.
So yeah, this is kind of my old stomping grounds near WGTE.
Okay.
Get on my bike and.
What places would you visit when you were younger?
I mean, ice cream shops. Let's talk about Wixie Bakery. Let's talk about Penguin Palace. Let's talk about Lickety Split. But, obviously a little bit of a sweet tooth. But, where else? I spent a lot of time at the rec center back in the day when that was more, there were more activities happening there. But, yeah.
All good memories.
All good memories about South Toledo.
Okay. And what about high school life?
High school life, like I said, I then switched from public school to private, went to St. John's, followed my brother there. He was 4 years older than me, and so that was just kind of maybe an option as far as college prep, what I was going to do possibly, after school. So went to St. John's and enjoyed that. It was a totally different experience that I had at, say, like Burndale. Most of my friends ended up going to Bowser. but made a whole group of new friends for life, at St. John's.
Did you do any extracurricular activities or sports or anything?
Not. I had like a very unsuccessful sports career. Like a lot of guys, I got cut from the basketball tryouts at St. John's, and I tried cross country for a little while. Realized how much I didn't enjoy running.
Okay.
And but yeah, just mostly. Nothing too organized in high school as far as sports went.
What about college?
College,
Where'd you
I
go?
went to Miami of
Okay.
Ohio in Oxford.
Okay.
And studied speech communications. And I always tell people I chose that major because it had the least math requirement.
Oh, man. Listen, that's what I need to know because I do not like math.
Well, we're kindred spirits then.
Okay. How much math did you have to take?
Oh, you don't even want to know. It was like the math that the football players would take.
Okay, like the intro to algebra?
That's right,
Okay,
basically.
yes. I don't even like that one.
It was bad.
Well, it was either, now I know another one, but broadcasting college was one of the ones I wanted to do because you don't have to do none of that.
Oh,
I don't
nice.
think. Yeah. So that's so cool. I know you're a huge fan of art and music. So what concerts or art events have you had the pleasure of attending here this summer in Toledo?
So locally, let's see. I've gone to several art openings. I think of the Toledo School for the Arts, their new gallery space. I've been to some exhibitions there, and as well as the Toledo Museum of Art. As far as music, I was happy to see that Robert Plant and Alison Krauss came to the Toledo Zoo Amphitheater, beautiful space when it's a nice night. And so I saw that show. Most of the concerts that I go to happen to be out of town. I go to Detroit a fair amount and Ann Arbor to see shows. One of the things I worked on this summer that was really rewarding, it was actually an event that I helped organize. There's a mural on the back of Glenwood Lutheran Church that was inspired from a children's book by Amanda Gorman, and the illustrator is Lauren Long. Lauren Long is a really accomplished and well-respected illustrator who lives in Cincinnati. And I saw this book that Amanda Gorman put out, and it was a book that had a mural in the book, depicted in the book. And I thought just randomly it would be really interesting to see if that could be recreated on an actual wall. And it was past, last fall. And it was completed this summer. In the middle of June, we had a community celebration that was really kind of a nice culmination of all the hard work of everybody involved. There was the muralist was Dean Davis, who, if you follow, kind of art, street art, muralism, he's done a number of murals around town. Really talented guy. And then Chris Hanley, who is the head pastor at Glenwood, is a personal friend of mine that I know actually through improv. And
are you part of the improv thing at the Toledo Rep?
Well, it started at the Toledo Rep. That's where my first class was, but the Glass City Improv teaches classes.
Okay.
I highly recommend anybody doing improv. I did it really because I was terrified by it. I didn't grow up performing. I had never been in a school performance. I was never on stage. I was not a theater kid. But a lot of my friends had been involved with improv and encouraged me to check it out. And so you kind of face your fear, and it's all for a good time. You know, you goof and everybody laughs, and it's another good way to just balance your life.
I've heard that from another friend of mine that does that. So that's really interesting that you're seeing all the little secret things that we're learning about John.
That's right. That's right. So secret.
So you have been the lead editor, is that correct, for the Toledo.com website?
That's right.
And that is one of my favorite online resources for all the great things happening in our city. How did Toledo.com come about, and what was your role in its inception?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you use it, and I'm glad I still, it's funny. I still meet people who aren't exactly sure what the site is, and when you put your heart and soul into something for, this will be my 20th year there.
Wow.
It's kind of heartbreaking to know that somebody doesn't know what it is, but on the other hand,
Right.
I think of it as an opportunity to educate somebody and say, hey, we have this resource. So just to go back to answer your question, about 20 years ago, Ian Harton, he's the person that registered that domain and built a very kind of rudimentary site. It was still helpful, but it was the early days, mid-90s of the internet and websites. And so he had registered that domain name first. I'm sure there's a lot of entities in Toledo that would love to have that domain now. I was just doing work for him that really wasn't related to website stuff. He had some e-commerce efforts that I was helping him doing shipping and receiving and some marketing and those kinds of things. But in my mind, I had always come back to Toledo.com with some interest of like this site could be so much more. And he's an incredible entrepreneur, and he just said, I don't have time to really focus on this, but he gave me a long leash to just experiment and just kind of keep polishing that site to make it again a helpful resource. I've mentioned before that we could have sold out a long time ago and maybe, even cashed out. But we're trying to be good stewards of that domain name. We realize how, fortunate we are to have that. So when someone does an organic search for, say, like Toledo events or Toledo attractions, Toledo things to do, we will pop up in a search. And so that's why we have significant traffic. But so for me, half of my time is spent really focusing on making the content, again, relevant, something that people actually care about, and an easy site to navigate. There's a whole team of people who helped build a really functional site that is I think, a good user-friendly experience. And so, but really, the event calendar is really the foundation of our site. We have user-submitted events from the public, and it's free. And so we have become this hub, where people give us this information, give us press releases, give us event information for our calendar. So the calendar, I would argue, might be the most comprehensive online event calendar in Northwest Ohio.
Okay.
And so that's helpful. And then, of course, to keep it running, part of my time is devoted to finding partners who want to have exposure to our audience. So we sell advertising like other sites, but we have been digital all along, whereas some entities, maybe like a print, and then they also have a website, or they might be a news media source. There's not really hard news on Toledo.com. It's usually, I tell people, we're focused on arts, culture, entertainment, and the positive people, places, and things around town. So with that lane, that's kind of where we primarily stay in.
That's really nice. And I just want to say, I personally have been supported by you guys for the last 20 years. So I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you just caring about positive people, because that's what this show's about too. All the great people.
You're a good example of somebody who is always putting together events, whether it's in fashion or whether it's music related, or, you bring people together. And we've known each other for a long time, but I know how hard it is when you're trying to do something and you don't necessarily have this big bucket of money to market what you do. And so in that regard, I think Toledo.com fills a void for kind of these upstarts and people who are, and I've seen people who used to do things really on a low budget, and now they're big and they're doing things,
That's beautiful.
And so
I hope they're grateful. Because I am grateful. That's why we are here.
No, that's cool. I'm grateful that you care about the site. So.
Yes. And our producer's a fan too. So. Nice. What do you believe makes our city, the Glass City, so great? How do you think, in your opinion, we can make it even better?
I mean, how much time do you have?
As much time as you want. Like, we are so enjoying this conversation right now.
Well, I would say, first thing that comes to mind is the people in Toledo, both people who have been here the whole time, like myself, and also people who come into the community and they find that if you connect with the right people, if you network and you're genuine and you are respectful and you really care with passion about what you're doing, I think it's the nice thing about a city like Toledo, the size of Toledo. We're not Detroit, we're not Chicago. We already know that. But we are, the size of Toledo you could have a conversation with just about anybody you need to have a conversation with without getting in a long line, including local politicians. And that, I think, plays to Toledo's advantage. In other words, if you find people who care about what you care about, or if they understand what your passion is. So many times over the last, 20, 30 years, I've been in conversations where someone says, oh, you know who you need to talk to? You know who could really help you out? And I love that about Toledo. I was away for one summer in Chicago just to kind of test the waters and realized very quickly, not only was it more expensive, but it was just hard to know where you fit in.
Yeah.
And whether you're buying a building or you're trying to start a new business or trying to find partners or you're trying to figure out how to market to an area, I feel like Toledo is just a unique city, and we're always
1 degree of separation almost.
Definitely, yeah. People always say, if you're not from here, people will start the conversation with where'd you go to high school or where'd you grow up, and then they start to
totally place them.
Yeah,
it could be a good and a bad thing, but it's mostly a good thing.
I do feel bad sometimes for people who move here and people they don't have that starting point of like what geographically was your where was your area that you roamed back in the day.
I was just lucky I came during high school years because I could just say like, I went to Scott, then I went to Poly Fox, and you know what I mean? So at some point where I have created my own group of people. And,
for sure.
But now you're right. I'm going to tell you. So my past guests, have been people like, Senator Paul Hicks Hudson and Anita Lopez, and people that in New York where I'm from, I would have probably never got to touch those people with a 10-foot pole. So it's like,
right.
That is amazing. And I tell my friends that all the time. Like, why do you stay in Toledo? I'm like, really? My house is affordable.
Right.
My kids go to really great schools. It doesn't cost me anything.
Right.
And I get to be friends with my local people that are anything from the girl next door to our mayor, like that's amazing.
I agree completely. Definitely. There's so many people doing the really amazing things. I touched on it earlier. I tend to put people in two boxes. You're either curious or you're not curious. And if you're curious, you will explore what Toledo has, and you will feel like there's a lot to do here. There are a lot of people doing really amazing things. And I've said this before in other ways, but I am a person who, if something is interesting to me, I'm going to go through that door. I'm going to check that out. I'm going to try to figure out what's behind this, who are the people behind this, what might be their passion, and then you just learn so much about Toledo that way. There are so many stories. It's endless.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have like a recap one day of the endless stories.
Yes,
off the air.
Definitely.
But yes, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for sharing your love of Toledo with us. And hopefully, we'll find out the next great things on Toledo.com.
Yeah, please go to the site and check it out. But I appreciate you and what you're trying to do and bringing these narratives, these personal stories out, to try to learn more about these people. I mean, what you're doing is a great way to connect with people around town. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you for your work.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. It means a lot. And I appreciate WGT for giving me the opportunity.
No doubt.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm your host and producer, Monique. My executive producer is Chris Piper. Join me next time for another exciting episode of Soul of the Glass City podcast. For more information, if you have questions or comments, go to wgte.org/soul.
WGTE. Voices around us.
WGTE is supported in part by the American Rescue Plan Act funds allocated by the City of Toledo and the Lucas County Commissioners and administered by the Arts Commission.